Imagine your mind as a garden, silent, obedient, and always growing. But here's the unsettling truth. It doesn't care if you plant seeds of success or failure. It simply grows whatever you feed it. Right now, without knowing, you might be nurturing the very things you fear. What if the invisible force shaping your life isn't luck, but your own thoughts? The question is, what are you unconsciously growing? In just a few moments, I will teach how to master the powerful law. What you focus on, you attract. The invisible law, you become what you think about. I want you to imagine for just a moment that your mind is like a grand garden. This garden does not care what seeds you plant, whether they be seeds of success, hope, abundance, or seeds of doubt, fear, and failure. But mark my words, whatever you plant, it will grow. This is the invisible law that governs every man and woman, the law that says what you focus on, you attract. You see, thoughts are not idle. They are magnets. They have form, energy, and power. They shape not only how you feel, but the very circumstances of your life. You've seen it before. A man who constantly thinks about poverty, talks about scarcity, believes that the world is unfair. What does he attract? Misery, lack, and more hardship. On the other hand, a person perhaps with no more talent, who fills his mind with images of opportunity, abundance, and faith in himself, he attracts prosperity, support, and success seemingly out of thin air. This is no accident. This is no trick of luck. It is the natural consequence of what I call definiteness of purpose combined with definiteness of thought. You are either consciously designing your life or unconsciously accepting whatever weeds sprout in that mental garden. I recall a young man I once mentored. He was convinced he would never amount to anything because his father had told him so. Day after day, he focused on failure. His head was bowed, his shoulders slumped, his conversation filled with words like, I can't, is impossible, and it's too hard. One day, I told him plainly, son, if you keep watering those weeds of failure, don't expect roses to bloom. Something shifted in him that day. He began, slowly but surely, to replace those weeds with seeds of faith. He started each day declaring, I am capable. I am destined for more. His world changed, not overnight, but steadily and surely. Today, he is a man of influence, wealth, and peace. The lesson is simple but profound. If you wish to change your life, start by changing what occupies your thoughts. Focus on health, and health finds you. Focus on opportunity, and opportunity knocks. Focus on kindness, and friends abound. Focus on growth, and the doors to success will swing wide open. Remember, nature does not care whether you plant poison or medicine. It only returns what you sow. So ask yourself right now, what seeds are you planting in the garden of your mind? The mirror of belief. You will never outperform your self-image. Listen closely. No man ever rises above the image he holds of himself. Not once, not ever. You may labor harder than anyone in the room. You may possess the finest education, the most enviable skills. But if the image you hold of yourself is small, if you see yourself as unworthy, incapable, or unlucky, then life will forever deliver results that match that image. I've sat across from men whose voices trembled as they confessed, Mr. Hill, I just don't believe I am destined for success. And I always told them the same thing. That belief alone is the first and greatest obstacle you must conquer. Understand this. Your subconscious mind accepts every thought, every word, every belief you feed it as truth, whether it uplifts or destroys you. It does not argue, it does not reason. It simply accepts, then sets to work making that belief real. Think of a man who believes himself to be unlucky. He walks with his head down, failing to see the open doors around him. He hesitates, doubting his decisions. His handshake lacks firmness. His speech lacks conviction. Is it any wonder that opportunities pass him by? His belief becomes his reality. But let me share a story of transformation. There was once a humble shoe clerk, timid, unsure, overlooked by everyone. One day, he made a decision. He declared, I will become a man of influence. I will become a leader of men. Each day, he fed his mind with affirmations of strength, capability, and faith. Over months and years, his posture changed, his voice deepened, his handshake grew firmer. Today, that man commands respect, runs his own enterprise, and is sought after for his wisdom. You see, the outer world is nothing but a mirror. It reflects back the beliefs you hold about yourself. If you believe you are meant for greatness, the world conspires to help you achieve it. If you believe you are doomed to failure, the world obliges. So I challenge you, look in the mirror, Who do you see? More importantly, who have you decided to become? Change that inner image, and I promise you, everything on the outside will change as well. The power of definite goals. Focus creates fortune. A ship without a rudder is tossed by every wind. A man without a goal drifts the very same way, at the mercy of circumstance, luck, and the opinions of others. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will determine the quality of your life more than the goals you set. When your mind is given a definite destination, it becomes a magnet for the resources, the people, the ideas, and the opportunities necessary to achieve it. This is the invisible hand of focus at work. I have sat in rooms with the wealthiest industrialists of our time, and do you know the one common thread among them? They knew exactly what they wanted. Not vaguely, not someday, precisely, clearly, unwaveringly. A man once came to me complaining of never catching a break. I asked him, "What exactly do you want?" He hesitated, he stumbled, he replied, "Well, I just want to be better off." I shook my head. The world does not respond to vague wishes. It responds to definite plans. You see, your mind is like a heat-seeking missile. When you give it a precise target, it adjusts, calculates, and hones in with laser-like focus. Distractions fade. Doubt weakens. The path becomes clear. Let me tell you the story of Andrew Carnegie, the great steel magnate. Carnegie started with nothing, but from a young age he carried a singular goal: to become the richest man in the world. Not for greed, but to demonstrate the power of intention and then use that wealth for the betterment of mankind. And so he did. His focus was relentless. He wrote it down. He reviewed it daily. He aligned every thought, every action with that goal until it was reality. The lesson? If you wish to become successful, wealthy, or fulfilled, you must first be definite about what that looks like. A vague wish produces vague results. A precise goal produces a precise outcome. Write it down. Repeat it daily. Burn it into your mind until your very soul believes it. Focus creates fortune. Always has, always will. The unshakable power of faith, belief unlocks the door. I must impress upon you a truth that has stood the test of time. Faith is the starting point of all achievement. Without it, no plan can succeed. With it, no obstacle is insurmountable. Faith is not merely wishing. It is not idle hope. Faith is a deep, unwavering conviction that what you desire is not only possible, it is inevitable. It is the inner certainty that calls unseen forces into motion. I have watched men of modest beginnings rise to astonishing heights, not because they had more talent or resources, but because they possessed a fire of faith that no setback could extinguish. There was once a man, a poor farmer's son, who dreamt of becoming a great speaker. His peers laughed, his teachers scoffed. He had no connections, no fortune, but every morning he stood before his mirror and declared with conviction, "I am a speaker. I am a leader of men." He practiced, he persevered, years passed, and today his words moved nations. Why? Because his faith never wavered. Faith turns obstacles into stepping stones. Where the fearful see failure, the faithful see opportunity. And here's the great secret. Faith must be practiced daily. It is not something you have once and for all. It is a discipline, a muscle that grows with use. Every time you affirm your goal, every time you visualize its completion, every time you speak as though it is already yours, you are strengthening the mighty force of faith. And that, my friend, makes you unstoppable. The power of persistence. Refuse to quit, and you cannot be defeated. There is a simple rule that governs success more than talent, more than luck, more than education, and it is this: the man who refuses to quit cannot be defeated. Persistence is the master key that unlocks every door. Show me a man who has achieved greatness, and I will show you a man who has tasted failure, disappointment, and rejection, yet rose each time with greater determination. I remember vividly the story of Colonel Sanders. At the age when most men retire, he carried a recipe for fried chicken and an idea. He traveled door to door, facing rejection over 1,000 times. 1,000! But he persisted, and eventually someone said yes. That small yes grew into an empire. Why? Because he simply refused to quit. Persistence does not mean blind stubbornness. It means adjusting your sails, refining your methods, but never surrendering the goal. It is the quiet whisper that says, try again, even when the world says give up. Life will test you. It will ask, do you truly want what you claim to desire? It tests not to punish, but to strengthen, to separate the committed from the merely interested. When you persist, Unseen forces begin to work in your favor. Doors that were once closed swing open. People who once ignored you become allies. Opportunities that seemed impossible reveal themselves. So, I say to you, be relentless. Be unyielding. For the man who persists holds in his hands the power to shape destiny itself. The mastery of discipline, the silent architect of success. Let me be clear about something most men overlook. Discipline is the bridge between thought and accomplishment. Without it, even the finest plans remain idle dreams. Discipline is not a punishment, but rather the greatest gift you can give yourself, the silent architect that shapes your future. A man may desire wealth, health, happiness, but desire alone is nothing without the discipline to act upon it. I have met many whose minds were filled with grand ideas, men who spoke of ambitions to become scholars, inventors, leaders, but who lacked the daily discipline to follow through. These men were forever stuck in the realm of someday. Discipline is simple in theory, but mighty in practice. It is the ability to do what must be done, whether you feel like it or not. It is the quiet voice that says, rise before dawn, when the body begs for more rest. It is the steady hand that reaches for the book instead of the bottle. It is choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. I once knew a man named Samuel. Samuel was born into hardship. Every odd was stacked against him. But Samuel had one advantage that none could take from him: discipline. He woke before the sun, studied his craft, saved his earnings, treated his body as a temple, and spoke only of possibilities. Over time, his discipline turned into mastery, and mastery into prosperity. Samuel's wealth was not the result of one grand event, but of 10,000 small decisions made with discipline. Discipline, my friend, compounds. Each day you practice it, it grows stronger. Like a muscle, it may be weak at first, but through repetition, it becomes unbreakable. The man who disciplines his mind controls his destiny. The man who neglects discipline is forever at the mercy of circumstance. There will always be temptations. The easy path, the shortcut, the distraction. The world whispers, rest a little, delay a while, give up, but the disciplined man answers back, not today. My future demands more of me. So I ask you, what small act of discipline can you begin today? Perhaps it is committing to rise at the same hour. Perhaps it is setting aside a portion of your earnings. Perhaps it is choosing your words with care, speaking only of what you intend to create. Know this: discipline is freedom. It frees you from chaos, from regret, from the empty life of those who drift. When you master yourself, you master your fate. The unseen power of environment. Who you surround yourself with shapes you. Let me share with you a truth as old as time itself. A man becomes the average of the 5 people he spends the most time with. Your environment is not neutral. It is either lifting you up or pulling you down. If you surround yourself with men who speak of opportunity, who focus on solutions, who pursue growth, you cannot help but rise to meet that level. But if you surround yourself with doubters, with those who mock ambition, who wallow in complaint, you will slowly, almost imperceptibly, become just like them. I remember visiting a small town during my early years of study. There I met 2 brothers, identical in birth, but opposite in fortune. One had become a prosperous merchant, the other a bitter drunkard. Curious, I asked them separately about their lives. The prosperous brother said, I chose to spend my days among men who discussed ideas, trade, philosophy, and wealth. The other side, I simply fell in with those who passed the time complaining about what the world owed them. There is no mystery here. Birds of a feather flock together. The conversations you engage in, the habits you witness daily, the standards of those around you, all become your own over time. A weak environment drains your energy, infects your thinking, and normalizes mediocrity. But a strong environment inspires, challenges, and demands your growth. This does not mean you must abandon everyone you know, but it does mean you must choose carefully who influences your thoughts. Seek out mentors. Engage with men and women whose lives represent what you wish to achieve. Frequent places where ambition is respected, where integrity is upheld, and where excellence is expected. The greatest fortunes were not built alone. Behind every successful man is a mastermind group, a circle of individuals committed to lifting each other higher. They exchange ideas, hold one another accountable, and sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron. So reflect deeply. Who do you dine with? Who do you confide in? What conversations dominate your evenings? Are these voices building you or quietly destroying you? Surround yourself with greatness, and greatness becomes inevitable. The resilience factor. Turn adversity into advantage. Adversity is the one companion in life that never discriminates. It does not concern itself with wealth, status, age, or privilege. It arrives uninvited to all, whether you are a king or a beggar, a seasoned elder or a bright-eyed youth. But the difference between those who rise to greatness and those who fall into despair is not determined by the adversity itself. Rather, it is defined by how one responds to the inevitable storms that life sends their way. Some are crushed under its weight, while others transform that very burden into the fuel that propels them toward success. Resilience is the invisible armor that allows individuals to endure, recover, and even flourish in the face of hardship. It is not merely about surviving, it is about learning to thrive despite the odds. It is that quiet voice in the darkest moments that whispers, "This too shall pass." It does not scream nor boast, but it remains steady and unwavering, even as chaos swirls around. Those who possess it understand that hardship is not the end, but often the beginning of something far greater. A story comes to mind, one that continues to inspire countless dreamers. The story of a young inventor named Thomas. One cruel night, fire consumed his factory, reducing his life's work to nothing more than smoldering rubble. Years of relentless labor, sweat, and dreams turned into ash in mere hours. Any ordinary man would have found it justifiable to collapse under the weight of such loss, to curse fate, or to simply walk away defeated. But Thomas was no ordinary man. As the morning sun rose over the charred remains and smoke still curled into the sky, he stood firm, gazed upon the ruins, and declared, "Now I can begin again, free of the mistakes of the past." True to his words, within a year he rebuilt his enterprise from the ground up, stronger, smarter, and more successful than ever before. His triumph was not in avoiding failure, but in rising magnificently from it. This is the essence of resilience. It is not a trait gifted to a select few at birth, but a skill, an inner strength that is cultivated and honed through experience. Each trial becomes the forge in which resilience is tempered. Every time one chooses to rise rather than surrender, that inner steel grows thicker, tougher, and more unbreakable. With every disappointment, there is an opportunity not to shrink but to expand, to become more than you were yesterday. The truth remains unchanging. Obstacles in life are not barriers meant to halt progress. They are the chisels that shape us into the people capable of handling the rewards we seek. Without resistance, there is no growth. Just as the mighty oak grows strong not in the calm, but because of the relentless wind that tests it, so too does the human spirit gain strength through life's tempt. The river does not carve deep valleys through brute force, but through persistent, patient resilience over time. Nature itself mirrors this principle, teaching us that endurance leads to greatness. When adversity stands before you, the question must shift. No longer should one lament, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead ponder, "What lesson does this hold? How is this refining me for something greater that lies ahead?" Hardship is a harsh but honest teacher. It reveals hidden reservoirs of strength within us, strength we may never have known existed had everything gone smoothly. It forces us to innovate when the familiar path is destroyed. It demands that we grow, adapt, and rise. Therefore, when the inevitable storm arrives at your doorstep, do not shrink. Do not let fear govern your next step. Stand tall. Lift your head. Greet it with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that resilience is the most powerful tool ever wielded by the hands of those who achieve greatness. And when you embrace it fully, you become, in every sense of the word, unstoppable. The fire of passion, fuel for an extraordinary life. If there is one undeniable force that separates those who are merely successful from those who rise to become truly extraordinary, it is passion. Passion is the invisible current that breathes life into effort, transforming tedious labor into joyful creation, turning obstacles into opportunities, and elevating ordinary men and women into timeless legends. Without passion, success feels hollow, a victory that tastes like ash. But with passion, every endeavor becomes meaningful. Every day becomes a journey filled with purpose, and life itself takes on a vibrancy that cannot be faked or manufactured. Passion is not a luxury reserved for the lucky few who happen to stumble upon it. It is, in truth, an absolute necessity for anyone who desires a life of depth, fulfillment, and lasting impact. Without it, the routines of daily existence become nothing more than mechanical repetition, a monotonous march from one paycheck to the next, from sunrise to sunset, absent of spark or significance. But introduce passion into that same routine, and everything changes. Suddenly, waking up feels like answering a call to adventure. Every task, no matter how small or seemingly mundane, becomes infused with meaning. It becomes a brushstroke in the masterpiece of your life's work. Throughout my years, I have had the privilege of speaking with titans of industry, world-renowned artists, inventors whose contributions have transformed entire industries, and thinkers whose ideas have shifted the very fabric of society. Regardless of their profession or their background, they all spoke of the same force that propelled them forward, a fire within. It wasn't merely about financial gain, fame, or recognition. No, their driving force was something far more profound. The desire to create, to contribute, to leave behind something that mattered. Their work was not simply a means to an end. It was an expression of their very soul. I vividly recall a conversation with a man named Henry, a humble craftsman whose hands shaped wood into objects of exquisite beauty. His shop was modest, tucked away on a quiet street, but his creations were sought after by the finest clientele from across the country. When I asked him what kept him going through the long hours and the painstaking precision his craft demanded, he smiled and said, "I could no more stop building than I could stop breathing." It wasn't the money that fueled him, though it came in abundance as a result of his dedication, but the sheer joy of creation, the satisfaction of bringing something into existence that, just yesterday, existed only in his imagination. That is passion in its purest form. Passion is a force that does not merely benefit the one who holds it. It is contagious. It radiates outward, drawing others in, inspiring them, lifting their spirits, and setting in motion a momentum that no obstacle can easily derail. It has the uncanny ability to turn seemingly insurmountable roadblocks into manageable challenges. Where others see dead ends, the passionate see detours, lessons, and new possibilities. But passion is not something that sustains itself without effort. Like a fire, it requires constant tending. It must be fed with curiosity, with learning, with the pursuit of mastery. It thrives on challenges that stretch the limits of your abilities and withers in the presence of complacency, negativity, and the soul-suffocating trap of settling for good enough. If you allow doubt to linger, if you permit the mundane to choke out your curiosity, the flame grows dim, and the once vibrant joy of doing your life's work begins to fade. The question then becomes one of profound importance. What stirs your soul? What is the work, the craft, the pursuit that you would gladly give yourself to even if no one ever paid you a single cent? When you move toward that answer, something extraordinary happens. Energy multiplies. Time seems to bend, with hours slipping away unnoticed because you are so fully immersed in what you love. Opportunities appear, sometimes in the most unexpected ways, as if the universe itself conspires to support those who dare to follow their passion. Always remember this undeniable truth. The greatest tragedy is not in failure. Failure, after all, is but a stepping stone on the path to growth. No, the true tragedy is to succeed, perhaps even by the world's standards, but to do so without passion. To wake each day to a life that looks successful on the outside but feels hollow within is the most painful fate of all. So live fully. Seek the work that makes your spirit catch fire. Feed that fire with everything you have, and let it guide your days, your choices, and your legacy. For a life led by passion is not only a life well lived, it is a life that leaves the world forever changed. The master key. Gratitude unlocks the door to abundance. If there is one secret so powerful that it magnifies every other principle of success, it is gratitude. Yes, simple, profound, unwavering gratitude. Gratitude is not merely the polite act of saying thank you when someone does you a favor. It is far more than manners or courtesy. It is a state of being, a way of seeing the world that fundamentally transforms every experience you have. It is a lens that shifts how you interpret your life, your circumstances, and your possibilities. When a man lives in gratitude, the world opens up to him in ways others cannot comprehend. Where most see obstacles, he sees opportunities. Where others notice what is lacking, he recognizes what is already abundant. I remember once meeting a wealthy landowner whose fortune stretched as far as the horizon. His lands were vast, his wealth undeniable. On the surface, anyone would envy his position, yet there was no joy in his eyes. His words were soaked with bitterness as he complained endlessly about the burdens of taxes, the unreliability of his labors, the unpredictability of the weather, and the frustrations of managing his sprawling estate. Despite all he possessed, he walked through life feeling as though something was perpetually being taken from him, as if the world owed him more. In the very same town lived an old shoemaker, whose circumstances were modest at best. His workshop was small, his income humble, and yet he radiated a kind of joy that was impossible to ignore. I once asked him, intrigued by his cheerful nature, How is it that you are so content with so little?" His face broke into a warm smile, and with a calm voice he said, "Every day I wake and give thanks. For the strength in my hands that allows me to work, for the love of my family that fills my home, and for the work itself that puts food on our table. I may not have much by the world's measure, but my heart is full." It was then that I realized something profound. The shoemaker, though lacking in material wealth, was the richer man by far, richer in spirit, richer in joy, richer in the currency that truly matters in life. His days were not burdened with the gnawing hunger of dissatisfaction. Instead, they were filled with a quiet, resilient happiness that no amount of gold could ever buy. This is the transformative power of gratitude. It shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. It tunes your heart away from what you lack and toward the wealth that already exists within your life, whether that wealth is found in relationships, health, opportunity, or the simple gift of being alive. Gratitude is not denial of hardship. It does not ignore pain or difficulty. Rather, it acknowledges them while still choosing to focus on what is good, what is right, and what is possible. What many do not realize is that gratitude has a tangible, almost mystical ability to attract more of what you appreciate. It aligns your mindset with the natural laws of prosperity. When you are grateful, your mind opens to solutions. You become more creative, more resilient. You draw goodwill from others because people are naturally drawn to those who radiate positivity and appreciation. Gratitude silences the insidious voices of fear and doubt. The two cannot coexist. It is impossible to be both deeply fearful and truly grateful at the same time. One always drives the other